Welcome to Financial Issues with Shana Burt, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Seth, sitting in for Shana Burt.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Financial Issues, Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. Happy to be here with you today. Let's get right to it here, folks. I want to start off by saying a very happy birthday to our ministry's fearless leader, the matriarch of our ministry, Dan's wife, Yvonne Celia. Happy birthday to you, Yvonne. We are so grateful for you, and we all love you so much here at the ministry. Hope you have a great, great day today. I want you to join me, folks, in wishing Yvonne Celia a happy birthday today. Please feel free to chime in on the chat if you're watching there. Today's show, folks, sponsored in part by our friends over at Samaritan Ministries. So make sure that you check them out. We love Samaritan Ministries. They do health sharing the right way. It's kind of health care, but it's more health sharing, and it's really, really good. SamaritanMinistries.org, or you can call them at 1-877-764-2426. We have plenty of testimonies here at the ministry of both myself, Shana, other folks here at the ministry who have used Samaritan Ministries and have just absolutely loved it. So really, really good stuff there. Make sure to check them out today. So in the economy, big news that we got yesterday, of course, was NVIDIA reported its earnings, and once again, it did not disappoint. Now, for 1 year, NVIDIA has really been kind of the engine that has been driving this tech resurgence in the markets. It's now been a year, and 1 year after that kind of first earnings report, that really benchmark earnings report that started this whole thing, NVIDIA continued. The shares actually passed $1,000 for the first time. The revenue topped expectations at $26.04 billion versus $24.65 billion. And NVIDIA said it expected sales of $28 billion now in the current quarter. The chipmaker reported a net income for the quarter ending April 28th of $14.88 billion, or that's $5.98 per share, and the stock rose 7% in extended trading. So another big win there for NVIDIA, and the markets were very pleased by that. Speaking of the markets, they were rather calm yesterday. They were waiting kind of right around the flat line. They were waiting for the release of May's FOMC meeting minutes, as well as the results of NVIDIA's earnings report. Now, NVIDIA did not report earnings until after the closing bell, so the markets didn't quite catch that. They actually ended negatively yesterday. The Dow was down 0.5%, the S&P 500 down 0.25%, and the NASDAQ was down 1/5. But not to worry for the markets, because right as the bell tolled for that closing day there, NVIDIA reported earnings, and the pre-markets have really loved it. The Dow is up right now in pre-market trading. The S&P 500 is up considerably as well, about 0.7%. And the NASDAQ is up over 1%, expecting a good day here for the markets following that earnings release. A couple of economic headlines I'd love to get to you here, folks, before we hear from Shana for the remainder of the show. We got existing home sales out. I believe it was yesterday after we signed off the live show. So existing home sales fell 1.9% in April to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.14 million. Sales also dipped 1.9% from 1 year ago. The medium existing home sales price rose 5.7% year over year. That's no surprise. It's up to $407,600. That's the 10th consecutive month of year-over-year price gains and the highest price ever for the month of April. It continues to be very difficult to find an existing home to buy. The inventory of unsold existing homes increased 9% month over month to 1.21 million at the end of April. Sales of homes priced $1 million or more in particular posted the biggest increase among all price categories. That was surging 40% from a year ago. All cash buyers made up 28% of the sales, and about 33% of homes were sold to first-time home buyers. That's the highest share since January of 2021, excuse me. Mortgage rates, as they sit, just over 7% still, so it continues to be a very tough option for especially young buyers to be able to find a home that has already been built. With these high mortgage rates, it's just making it not very easy to do. A similar headline here, perhaps part of the reason why it is so difficult for home buyers to find an existing home, is that investors are actually snatching up a good percentage of these homes. About 1 in 5 homes for sale are being bought not by first first-time home buyers or by families, but by investors and hedge fund managers. So they're buying properties at the quickest rate seen in nearly 2 years. That's according to findings published by Redfin. These investors purchased roughly 44,000 homes in the first quarter of 2024. The gain was primarily driven by an increase in purchases of single-family homes. Now, Redfin attributed the surge in part to the fact that investors are earning more money than they were a year ago. That's true for sure. Typical home sold by an investor in March yielded a 55% return, and that's a 9% increase from the 46% return from the previous year. It's just all the more reason why it's tough for young buyers especially to be able to find a good home. So that's what's going on here in the economy, folks. Today, we'll get a couple more economic numbers out. We'll get a few more earnings reports as well, but really, that NVIDIA report was kind of the last one of note for earnings season for quarter one of 2024. And of course, that was a big one as well. As we'll see the markets open in about 20 minutes, I suspect that they'll open very positively and continue positively throughout the day, particularly the tech-heavy NASDAQ. Well, folks, as you know, we're in the midst of a very important campaign here. We're funding the light with Preborn. Preborn is doing some great work out in the spaces that need it most. Preborn, of course, is a ministry that fights against the darkness of abortion. They help mothers. They help unborn children. They save the lives of unborn children, and they protect mothers from the physical and psychological and spiritual damages of having an abortion. So they share the gospel of Jesus Christ with these mothers and fathers, and they're doing some amazing work. So right now, for the month of May, we're partnering with Preborn to try to underwrite 50 ultrasound machines. We're over halfway there, folks. We're right around 30 machines right now. I'd love to get some big gifts in today. We've been doing a great job. Even if you can only give a little bit, great job, and thank you so much. But just remember, every time we hit that threshold of $5,600, another ultrasound machine will be underwritten by an anonymous donor. That machine will then be put into a crisis pregnancy center. Most of these crisis pregnancy centers are specifically and strategically placed in areas of the country where abortion is the highest. Major cities, for example, San Francisco and Dallas and other places like that. And not only that, folks, but I think one of the coolest things about this match is that when you give right now to Preborn, you'll also bless financial issues as well, if you love financial issues, because the anonymous donor who is underwriting these ultrasound machines is also giving a large monetary gift to financial issues. When all said and done, when this campaign is all over, the total amount of money that we raise for Preborn will also be given to us in the form of a gift to financial issues. It is an amazing thing to do, and so I would encourage you, if you love Preborn, if you love financial issues, please consider giving to our friends at Preborn today. You can go to preborn.com/FISM, or you can also go to financialissues.org and click on the Preborn banner. It takes you to the same exact place, real easy to do there. And they also do accept gifts of stock as well. If you need help with that, we'd be happy to help you out there also. But I just wanted to keep this in the forefront of your mind here, folks, because the fight for life continues. And so we saw a headline just came out yesterday. A pro-life group launched an initiative to keep the Republican Party platform pro-life. I found this very interesting. It's the Students for Life Action. They launched an initiative this week to ensure that the Republican Party maintains its historic status as the pro-life party. I think this is important here because we see, sadly, some squishes. We see some spineless weasels in the Republican Party. People who will say, well, you know what? Okay, we're okay with killing babies up to a certain point, or, you know, different things like that. Where some of them have even used traditional pro-choice language and have said, you know what? It's up to the mother. That is nice-sounding pro-choice language that essentially says it's okay to murder your baby if it's inconvenient. It's not okay. It's never okay to do that. Republican lawmakers have kind of shied away from condemning abortion and pushing for the pro-life policies in the wake of the victory in 2022 with the Dobbs decision. So this group is essentially trying to get RNC leadership to really take a stand and say, you know what, abortion is wrong. It's murder. And I think this is so important, folks, because it highlights a little bit of the untrustworthy nature of the GOP when it comes to this issue. We need leaders who are going to be 100% unashamedly pro-life, and they will say abortion is wrong from the moment of conception. That is what we need. Now, I understand it's a long battle. We take steps to get there for sure. A 15-week ban, for example, is better than nothing. A 6-week ban is better than that. But we can't settle there. The goal is to be able to save babies and to protect them from the moment of conception. That's what Preborn's everyone's doing. That's what Financial Issues is doing as well. Folks, we got a great rest of the show planned here. I hope you'll stick with us. We got more Financial Issues coming up right after this break. Don't go anywhere.
The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Thanks for being with us today. I hope this can be an edifying show for you. This is a best of Financial Issues.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're so glad that you joined us today as we talk about defunding darkness and our biblically responsible investment strategy and funding the light, the way that that we encourage you to be a joyful and generous giver. So many times you hear us talk about what it means to be biblically responsible in your investment selection, and it really just means, avoiding companies that are using God's money to support an agenda of darkness. And we give you a step-by-step strategy where you can become your own portfolio manager. However, we don't want you to be discouraged if that's just not your cup of tea. We still want to give you a solution to being biblically responsible. That's why we have models on our site that use the Timothy Plan funds and ETFs as well, because the Timothy Plan is a biblically responsible, it's the premier biblically responsible mutual fund company that's out there. They were the pioneer. They were the first ones to create mutual funds that were biblically responsible. They developed a lot of the screening process that we even use here at our ministry to choose things for our buy and broad list. And so if reading about stocks or thinking about different companies really makes your eyes glaze over, but you really want to honor the Lord in the way that you invest, good news for you. You can still become a partner, and you can use the asset allocation models that we have that use the Timothy Plan and the ETFs. So we hope that if you want to learn more about the Timothy Plan, you'll go to our website, financialissues.org, and you can click on the banners over there to get to the Timothy Plan. Such a great mutual fund company, and so evenly yoked with us in our commitment to biblically responsible investing. So we hope that you will check them out if you are not into being your own portfolio manager. So speaking of our system that we have here to help you in the way that you invest, to honor God with those dollars that He's given you, we have a couple of lists on our site. We have a broad list and we have a buy list. And it's very important to know the difference between the two if you are indeed going to be your own portfolio manager and you're going to be constructing your very own portfolio, sort of like your own little mutual fund where you get to make all of the decisions. So we get asked a lot, how does FISM choose the companies that we look at that become part of our universe? So the first and most important thing is the companies have to pass the biblically responsible screens. Now, the good news is that only about 10% of publicly traded companies in the U.S. fail one of those screens and are just considered off the table, uninvestable by us. So then we have the other 90% of companies, which is, 8,000 or 9,000 different companies that we could possibly look at. Now, if you've taken a peek at our broad list, you're going to see it doesn't include 8,000 or 9,000 companies. So we've narrowed that down a good bit. But is the broad list something that you should be looking at when you're constructing your portfolio? I would say no. That is one of the most well-known and repeated rules here. If you're going to follow our strategy, is that you shouldn't be buying from the broad list. So the broad list, even though you can see it, it serves a couple of purposes, because you may be trying to reconstruct a portfolio that was not biblically responsible and, trying to move to one that is. So our broad list is screened once a month for biblically responsible activity, but there are still some companies that we do follow that are not biblically responsible any longer. Now, they were at one time, and the ones that are on there and are listed in red are ones that were biblically responsible at one time and were on our buy list at one time. Now, when we learned of the activity that they were engaged in, we sent out sell alerts and asked partners to sell them, so partners shouldn't still own them. But it'll also give you an idea if you're trying to reconstruct your portfolio of, things that are not biblically responsible. It's not a comprehensive list of what's not biblically responsible. You can find a tool where you can screen that on our website by going to our resources tab and clicking on Evaluator, where you can screen your investment. So you should never buy from the broad list. And you should know that some of the companies that we do track that are no longer biblically responsible, we do so because maybe we like some of them, and we hope that they will repent, because it is screened once a month. And if companies cease using the money to support things that grieve the heart of the Lord, then they become eligible for investment again. But you also must know that some of the companies on our broad list have never met our fundamental and technical criteria to make it onto the buy list. So don't assume that just because it's there and if it is biblically responsible, that it's something that we are encouraging you to consider. If the companies also, the ones on the broad list, if they've never been on the buy list, it could be possible that they don't get regular and consistent attention paid to them by our analyst. So you are far less likely to get a sell alert on them, since we've never recommended them in the first place. So a lot of good reasons not to shop from the broad list. Now, you should consider the companies that are on the buy list. So our strategy is a mix of fundamental analysis, some technical analysis, and some behavioral analysis. Don't really have a hard, fast ratio for what the breakdown would be, although I can tell you that the company fundamental analysis, looking at the fundamentals of a company, their balance sheet, their debt, their valuation, their earnings, their guidance, all of those things are have the highest weighting. So we're looking at companies that have very good, or at least very much improving fundamentals. A small part of making companies making it on to the buy list is a little bit of technical analysis. So true technical analysis looks at like chart patterns and different things like that. It is not a huge part of our strategy, but it can be a deciding factor sometimes when we're looking at two companies that are similar, both have good fundamentals. A technical chart pattern would maybe push us in one direction over the other. Also, we look at these companies through a behavioral lens. So we're always on the lookout for events that can cause life-altering losses. And, we stand ready to drastically change our asset allocation models to more heavier cash positions if we can identify things that are happening from a macro standpoint that would cause us to do that. So we look for companies, for our buy list, we look for companies that are under our current macro assumptions, meaning we're looking at demographics, trends in the economy. We're looking at trends in the demographic makeup of our country. We're looking at geopolitical events. And if you listen to the show a lot, we look a lot at government spending, changes to government spendings, responses to things like pandemics, all of those things that happen. The political environment that we're in, I mean, it's become more and more bifurcated, and so that is weighing a lot more heavily than it used to on the financial markets. So we're looking for those companies that under the current macro, demographic, and geopolitical assumptions would be companies that you could potentially keep forever, unless, of course, their fundamentals change or the underlying premises that we have about those macro considerations change. And we're looking to put them on the buy list at very good entry points. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit of the difference between the broad list and the buy list. It is very important to understand that and to know how to construct your portfolios. So if there's a topic that you'd like to hear me teach on, you can email Pat at financialissues.org and just put in the subject line, put teachable topics, and we'll add them to our list of things. Well, Seth, do you want to lead us into the stewardship verse for today?
I'd be glad to, Shana. Absolutely. You mentioned it earlier, folks. Just a reminder, it's Proverbs 24, 33 and 34. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler and your need like an armed man. You know, Shana, laziness has no place among the people of God. We're given a very limited number of years on this globe, and so we got to make the most of every opportunity. That's part of being a good steward. You talk often about stewarding our money, but also stewarding our time and our resources and our energy. And so we cannot be lazy. Hard work, and by the way, that encompasses not just the place you go to earn a living, but providing for your family, being there for your family, cultivating your little ones, your marriage, spreading the gospel. All of that will result in blessing. And so I hope we can take our cues from the one who accomplished all that he set out to do on our behalf. And of course, that's Jesus Christ, who was the ultimate worker.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. You know, when I read that, I think, oh, I got to work harder. But then, if you read it out of context, we might think, well, God is such a harsh taskmaster. All we're supposed to do is ever work. But read in context, we see what the scripture's talking about. It says, another translation reads, a little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. God definitely sets a standard for rest too, because on the seventh day, God rested. But the author here is just really noticing an overgrown field with broken fences. And he comes to the conclusion that really weeds don't pick themselves and fences don't mend themselves. And that the fruit of laziness is poverty. So we hope that you can balance that very well. Well, folks, if you're listening to a short version of the show, we hope that you'll hop on over to financialissues.org or download our phone app so that you can catch the full show. We want to make sure that you stay tuned today. We're going to get to a lot of the questions that you've sent in from our website, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back later this week to talk about the labor data that's coming out, some of that of which is coming out today and the rest of the week. So Don't miss Financial Issues this week. It'll be all new content that you've never heard before. Well, if you have to leave us, we bid you a farewell. For the rest of you, we're going to be back with more Financial Issues right after this break.
Our phones are not open today. You're listening to a best of.
Samuel Case, news anchor with FISM News, sits down to read real comments from real viewers.
All righty, let's see a bigger one here from Spectrum Nomad. That's a fancy name. Finally, a non-biased news source that tells everything how it is without having to push their opinion. You know, it's not necessarily true we're not biased. We are Christian, we are conservative, but you're totally right that we don't try to push our own opinions or commentary in the story. So it's really great to hear that you're picking up on that.
Many mothers find strength in the experience of giving birth as they overcome physical challenges and embrace the journey of bringing a new life into the world. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Throughout the month of May, FISM is partnering with Preborn to fund the light by providing 100 ultrasound machines to pro-life centers around the country. Now, how can you contribute? Well, for as little as $28, you can provide an ultrasound scan to an abortion-minded woman in crisis. And when that woman hears the heartbeat of her baby, she will choose life, get this, 90% of the time. It's remarkable. And guess what? With the help of a donor match, for every 200 scans donated, that's for a net value of $5,600, Preborn Ministries will be gifted an ultrasound machine to place at a clinic in need. Each machine has the potential to impact hundreds of thousands of mothers' choices. Preborn also offers additional support to mothers in need and presents the gospel to every mother who comes into their clinics, knowing that salvation is the greatest gift that can be given to a mother and her child. So go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You're listening to a best of Financial Issues.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Well, here at this stewardship ministry, we help you to defund darkness in the way that you invest with a biblically responsible investment strategy. And we also encourage you to not only defund darkness, but to fund the light. So what we mean by that is it takes money to do things in the earth. It takes money to do good things, and it takes money to do evil things. So we want to encourage you to be a joyful and generous giver, to be faithful with the resources that the Lord has trusted you with, to give back to God and the work that He is using people to do here in the earth. And one ministry that you will never go wrong supporting is the ministry of Preborn. They are very instrumental in pushing back against the darkness of abortion. And today we have with us the president of Preborn Ministries, to share with us what is happening at the ministry and how you might be involved. So welcome Dan Steiner, the president of Preborn Ministries. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Shana. Great to be on the show. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, give our listeners a sense of what Preborn is doing.
Well, we're just pushing out ads to young women every moment of every day in competition to the abortion industry. I love what you said, defund darkness. We are defunding Planned Parenthood by reaching their customers and taking them from them so they don't able to ring the cash registers on these young girls' pregnancies, which is what they're trying to do. And so, you know, every girl's our Valentine, Shana. We are trying to love them into the truth about the humanity of their baby, the gift that God has given them. It says, children are a heritage for the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. And so we're trying to reach every girl that we can because of the listeners of Financial Issue Stewardship Ministries that stand beside us in sponsoring these ultrasounds and underwriting these machines. And we're not just defunding darkness, but we're pushing forth the gospel of light to these young women. And, love can be expressed emotionally, but we're expressing it. Your listeners are practically through the alternatives to abortion that we provide through ultrasound to these girls every day. 200 babies a day, Shana. That's awesome.
That is beautiful. You know, the MO of the enemy it tells us clearly in Scripture is to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's exactly what the enemy wants to do when he wants to steal, as you pointed out, this heritage from the Lord, this gift of a child that a woman has been given, maybe through circumstances that weren't exactly ideal. But, you know, the Lord works to, he uses what the enemy meant for our destruction, and he uses it for our good. So I'm so grateful for the work that Preborn does. Well, you know, we hear lots of headlines, and one of the stories that we're starting to hear repeated over and over is how the Biden DOJ is using a KKK-era charge to extend prison time for pro-life activists. So tell our listeners what's happening in these cases and how are pro-life activists becoming criminals against the state?
Yeah, let's define pro-life activists, the people that have been charged by the Department of Justice and the Sith Lord of Attorney Generals, Merrick Garland, that has convicted and sentenced people for praying and worshiping in front of abortion clinics. That's what pro-life activism is. It's not like they're firebombing like they did our clinics. Right. They're lovingly trying to get women to think twice because they're under pressure. You know, you said it very well. These girls are, the circumstances around them, the mother of the pregnant girl often pushes her to abort, drives her to the clinic frequently. The boyfriend, husband, significant, whatever he is pushing her to abort. And so, activists are those people that right out in front of the clinics trying to lovingly reason with them about this. But this FACE law, Freedom of Access to Clinic Insurance, was not enacted to stop people from being in front of abortion clinics. It's completely different. And it's kind of a misapplication of the law. But they're virulently defending abortion at every point that they can. To take it to its illogical extreme, you've got Kamala Harris. That's what she was called when she was the Attorney General of California. Now she calls herself Kamala. Is going out to get Biden reelected, not on World War III, not on Biden inflation, not on border invasion, not on the burning our cities down or fentanyl crime. None of that. She's going out on the abortion freedom tour, pushing abortion across the country as healthcare. This is not healthcare. This is not healthcare. Let me tell you what this is. Abortion pill, 58% of all abortions are done in America by digital chemical abortions, which Preborn is marketed against on an hourly basis. Girl gets on the internet where she has all of her friends, where she gets all of her entertainment, where she has everything delivered to her front door, and where she has abortion pill delivered to her mailbox, and so this deadly abortion concoction comes to her mailbox. Let me tell you what happens. Real example, a young woman that here in Miami, had exactly that happen. She took the abortion pill, thought it was just, take this pill. This is a DIY abortion, do-it-yourself abortion. And she took the deadly concoction after her parents had left for the day. And there in the bathroom, after hours of bloody trauma, she delivered her baby on her bathroom floor, dead. Now, what's she going to do with that? Is she going to flush it? She's going to put it in a trash can? And she wrapped it up and put it in a washcloth and brought it into our Hialeah clinic. Freaked our people out. But so before, women wouldn't see the product of their abortion, and yet for years they'd have this reoccurring dream. If I've talked to one, Shana, Seth, I've talked to 100 women that have nightmares, reoccurring nightmares for the rest of their lives over this stuff. And that was before they had to dispose of the body of the child that they just killed. I mean, this is grisly, macabre kind of stuff, but this is reality. I think that, we need to see the truth for what it is. When they showed the pictures in Vietnam of the children that were killed, and the carnage of the war, it changed the public opinion. Now, I don't think that we'll get the complicit state media to ever do that. Thank God for organizations like Financial Issues that speak the truth. And we speak it in love, but we speak it. And this is what you and I, Financial Issues and Preborn, are stopping on an hourly basis. And it's one thing to be against abortion, but it's another thing, quite frankly, to do something about it. And we're doing that with compassion, with the love and gospel of Jesus Christ, with cribs and car seats and maternity clothes and diapers and FML baby food and the whole shooting match. What do they need so that they can choose life? Last year, 58,000, small city, 58,000 babies saved because of what the listeners of Financial Issues and have done.
Dan, you mentioned Kamala Harris earlier and her crusade for abortion. And, the scary thing is we have an election this year. And I don't know if you caught the headline of her comments. She was recently asked if she was ready to serve, if she's VP and something happens to Joe Biden or he becomes mentally incapable, and I say becomes mentally incapable, tongue in cheek. But, she didn't say, well, it's, he's fine and it's probably never going to happen, but of course I'm ready. She said emphatically, I'm ready to serve. So let that sink in for a minute if you're going to the ballot box to cast your ballot for Joe Biden, of who actually might be serving in his place. And, speaking of the election, there are some candidates that are getting criticized for maybe being a little bit softer on the abortion issue. And, what do we tell professing Christians who might be trying to meet the other side in the middle on this issue? Can we give any ground in the fight for life?
Well, I know that Financial Stewardship Ministries and Preborn likewise do not support publicly any candidate, but there's just one alternative for those who are under the lordship of Jesus Christ, and that is you vote biblically or you violate the word of God.
Yeah.
What's your choice? Biden is against everything, and the Democratic Party is against everything that we hold dear biblically. And so we don't have a choice who the candidate is on the other side. We cannot vote for that fella. Just based on biblical principles. I'm not endorsing any candidate either here.
Sure.
But I do know this. We've spent a lot of time, Valerie and I, with Donald Trump. And he has softened his position on abortion, you may be aware. And what he is doing there is he is bringing the center back to the right, because they are making abortion the hinge issue, because it is the hinge issue spiritually. This is fuel. The blood of these babies, to speak it with clarity, is fuel for the kingdom of darkness, the shed blood of the innocent. And so, they'll protect it to the death. And Trump is trying to get people to come to the right on that by softening his position. But here's the deal. I don't care what anybody says. I care what they do. We're defined by our actions, not by our rhetoric. And Trump has a record, and we know people that are very deeply involved with him, talking to him on a bi-weekly basis, that know him intimately, and he will take a clear, if he gets president, stand.
Thanks, Dan. We're at the end of the segment, but thanks for coming on. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more financial issues.
The miracle of carrying a child creates a unique bond between a mother and her unborn baby. She feels the baby's movements and responds to their needs even before birth. Help create that bond between an abortion-minded mother and her unborn child by giving the gift of life through Preborn. During the month of May, you can bless your mom for Mother's Day by giving to Preborn on your mother's behalf. For $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound scan that will enable an abortion-minded woman to hear the heartbeat of her baby. 90% of the time, that sound will change a woman's mind and cause her to keep their baby. Give the gift of life to the woman that gave you life by sponsoring an ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give. That's preborn.com/FISM. You can help an abortion-minded mother receive discipleship, encouragement, and the strength needed to have her baby.
Remember the good old days when companies stuck to just selling their products rather than using their profits to push an agenda? When you invest in a company, you become an owner of that company. And more businesses are now using your money to fund woke projects. We're called to be good stewards of all we have, and that includes ensuring your investments align with your biblical values. Thankfully, that's where Financial Issues can help. For over 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We provide Christian investors with the tools they need to build fiscally and biblically responsible portfolios. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom. For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
You're listening to a best of Financial Issues.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Ryan was asking about crypto earlier. Ryan, hold off on the rest of that question there. I'm going to get to it after we get to more partner questions because I do want to prioritize these as well. So these next partner questions coming up, we've got Dennis, we've got Clyde, and we've got Kevin here asking Shana some specific questions. After that, Ryan, I'll follow back with you and we'll close out the show answering your question about cryptocurrency. But first, here's more partner wisdom from Shana Burt.
Next one, Shana, is Dennis. Dennis is 55, our good friend Dennis, I think from California, saying, Shana, my wife and I are doing additional research on donor-advised funds. Is there a specific public charity that approves FISM as a grant recipient?
Yes, so I can't speak for every single donor-advised fund out there because I don't have experience with all of them. I have experience with two companies. One is really a Christian company. The name of it is Waterstone. And, you know, the issue, and I think where this question comes from with Dennis is that as we've talked about donor-advised funds, we've asked you to be careful with the custodians that you pick because the purpose for setting up a donor-advised fund is to carve out a piece of your assets for giving. So once you either donate stock or fund cash into a donor-advised fund, that money never comes back to you and your family, but it is earmarked for giving. And, you know, there's certain requirements. You have to give at least 5% of the value of it every year, so you can't just let it build up and build up and build up. But, you know, you do have to do some giving out of it. And then you also can select beneficiaries for when you go home to be with the Lord, that money is distributed to those nonprofits or, you know, if you're listening to this show, probably different ministries. Now, the challenges with the donor-advised funds is that there has to be some restrictions because you do get to use the money that you contribute to a donor-advised fund as potential tax deductions. So in order to get those benefits, you have to give up control in some areas. Those two areas can be how the money is invested. You may have an option to self-direct. That means that you get to continue to manage your own investments and maintain a biblically responsible investment strategy. Or it could mean that you have to allow their investment services to manage the money. And even sometimes with Christian companies, they don't, I hate to say it, but they don't even understand what biblically responsible investing is. So you want to be aware on that front. You also want to be aware that the custodian of your donor advised fund can approve or deny your request for giving. So you are making a recommendation on where you want the money to be given, but the custodian can approve or deny that. And some companies have said that companies that end up on a hate list by the Southern Poverty Law Firm, like Family Research Council or some other good, solid ministries that we like, are not eligible to receive gifts from their donor-advised accounts. So you want to be sure of that. So Waterstone is one that we know does approve FISM. There could be others out there, but I'm just not aware at this time.
Good answer there, Shana. It's good to know. This next one is Clyde, 75 years old. He's saying, I've been transferring money from my IRA to my joint brokerage account through charitable contributions. I have no problem making my RMD and then some. I'd like to transfer my IRA at a faster rate. Is there a timing issue that I should consider, like maybe transferring more now and then pay the taxes, or transfer later? Wondering if inflation would influence my decision. I don't need the IRA for living expenses. What do you think, Shana?
So there are some considerations that you want to be aware of. I don't think that inflation is really one of them. Two things that come top of mind whenever I start to think about this, and this is something that I do in private practice with my clients, is we definitely talk about the diversification in the types of accounts. So what I find in my experience, people have a lot of their liquid net worth concentrated in their IRA accounts, where they're not only growing money for themselves, but they're also growing money for the government because it's taxed either when they take it out later down the road, or when even worse, when they pass it on to a non-spouse beneficiary. Spouse can just roll it over and kind of continue the same pattern, but once it goes to a non-spouse, then time is really limited. We're down to 10 years to get that money out and have taxes paid on it. So the reason that you would take money out now, even if you don't need to spend it, versus some point down the road, is because you believe that taxes are in a better place now than where they will be in the future. And I am solidly in that camp. We're running over $34 trillion in debt. We can't balance a budget to save our lives. We're going to be spending $1 trillion this year just to pay the interest on our debt. And I see no signs of any politician making meaningful steps to reduce the spending of our government. So the government doesn't make money, it only appropriates money. We, the people, have given our leaders the power to decide what to spend money on, and then to collect that money from us in the form of taxes, and to extract that money from future generations by borrowing more than what they're bringing in. So I do not think that taxes are going to be lower in the future than they are today. In fact, we have the current tax plan, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the tax structure that President Trump brought into existence under his administration, that reduced taxes because, we believe that there's other ways of generating revenue and some things that the government shouldn't be spending money on altogether. So that tax package, or that set of tax laws, is going to expire at the end of next year. That's 2025. And if there is not new legislation for a new tax code, or either extending in the tax cuts just as they are, or modifying them in some way, then the tax brackets and tax rates are going to revert to what they were pre-2019. And that means tax raises for just about everybody. So if you have an opportunity right now to move money out at 12% versus what it might be in the future, I don't think it's going to be 12%, then that makes sense to do it. So you just have to know where the cutoffs are for the different tax brackets. Once you get into the 24% tax bracket, whether you are married filing jointly or whether you're single, those income amounts are different if you're in those different categories. But once you get into the 24% tax bracket, shortly after you cross over that threshold, you have something called IRMA to consider. So IRMA is an acronym that is that represents an increase that you would have, that you would see to your your Medicare premiums that would last potentially a whole year. So they look back to year before last, and you wouldn't actually experience this if you did it in 2024 until 2026 on your Medicare premiums. So if you go over a certain amount, and you can look that up or work with a tax professional to make sure you try to stay under that, you could see increased expenses in IRMA. So those two things, IRMA and, really pondering what future tax rates are going to be, even if we get to keep the current tax structure that we're in right now, if your income will be greater in the future, that might impact your tax bracket too. So those are the main things that I would look at.
Good stuff, Shana. This is probably the last one we have time for today. This is Kevin's question. He's 59. He's saying, Shana, I'm planning to retire in 1 to 3 years. My retirement savings are in a 401k. I estimate my savings will need to last my wife and I about 30 years. Now, I understand from listening that reduced volatility and preservation of capital are primary concerns at this point. Given the need to last for 30 years, would it be reasonable to consider different risk levels for several different portions of the total, and that's near, mid, and long term? What do you think, Shana?
So yeah, that's good thinking, Kevin. That you have certain money. If you're going to enter into the distribution phase, that you're going to be spending some of that money in the next 5 years. You're going to be spending some of that money in 5 to 10 years, and you're going to be spending some of that money beyond that. So that is really the basis for the asset allocation models and the thinking that we have. So you don't really have to mix, let's say, the 65 model with a younger model so that you get the growth from the younger model but the income from the older model. You can just pick one model, but that is, what you just described there, that thought process is what is behind the asset allocation in the different models.
Folks, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday with these shows, we're going to get to those questions as best we can, so keep them coming for sure. Speaking of questions, Ryan, your question about cryptocurrency. So I answered the second part of it, if we're going to bring someone on board. First question, if FI will keep ignoring crypto. I believe, brother, it's not that we're ignoring it. I believe rather we don't promote cryptocurrency in our investment strategy, so you won't hear us talk about it unless, like you just did, someone asks us a question. So let me say this first. We don't believe there's anything morally wrong with crypto, but we would encourage you to think soberly about investing in it for several reasons. One, because what we've seen in the last few days, it's very volatile. It was up to 69,000. It went down to 60,000 yesterday. Now it's back up to 67. In a long-term strategy, we just believe there are better options out there. It might not be your best option for steady, sustainable growth. Also, crypto is still the wild west of investing. There's very few safeguards on it. It's untraceable as far as we know. Every year, billions of dollars of crypto are stolen. So we just don't believe it's a very safe investment either. Little safeguards, not a great track record in terms of protection. Additionally, and this was Dan's stance as well, this is the money usually that's used by drug traffickers, terrorists, kidnappers, pimps, prostitutes. So any wicked person can use any currency, but we believe a currency like this might just be better to use something else. And last, in my opinion, cryptocurrency is often used as get-rich-quick schemes, and we are not about that. We're about a long-term, slow, steady growth strategy. Ryan, if you've got follow-up questions, brother, please ask them. It was great to be here with you folks. We'll be back tomorrow. Shanna will be live. Make sure to get your questions queued up. Until then, I'm Seth Udinsky signing off, and we'll see you tomorrow for more Financial Issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.